Hi, I'm Kawa, and this is QWA Podcast. In this show, we invite friends from the architectural fraternity for a casual conversation. From design think tank to integrated practice, we discuss the trials and tribulations of architectural pursuit. We hope this informal sharing will spark conversation among the listeners. Let's begin. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to QWA Podcast. I think this is a platform where we catch up with old and new friends, and our guest today is no stranger to the premise of the podcast. Joining us today is architect Azlan Syarawi, principal of Syawari Architect, director of Seshan Design. How are you doing today?
Really good, doing good. How are you?
So okay. Yes, long weekend. So we have been through, I'm sure out of your 12 years of experience and an additional, I don't know, 5 years as a student, your perception towards architecture must have changed throughout those 20 odd years, more or less.
Yeah.
Even then, maybe the passion or how you perceive architecture supposedly to be an outlet of creativity must have changed to a certain extent. At this juncture where we've been told global recession are coming, why architecture still?
I think it's like the perfect avenue for me, at least. I'm just speaking from my personal point of view. Um, I think that even though my perception towards architecture actually changed throughout the years, I think every 2 years there's kind of like a reset. Like, I always have this question, I'm not sure whether you do, it's like, why am I doing this? But you always find a new reason or a new objective. Somehow I still find myself ending up in this space because it's quite interesting. You have something that you can build from the ground up, and it isn't something that is just stuck on a piece of paper or in a digital format. You can see people actually using it, and I think that's part of the draw of architecture. So recession or not, people still need their houses and their buildings. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
So
That's
so
why I'm
be,
still
so you've been working in such reputable practices before this. I think you work in Hijaz juga before this, kan?
I trained with Hijaz. I went as a trainee.
Oh, okay. And then
Yeah.
of course, for almost a decade or still, or even slightly more than a decade with Seshan Design. Out of those experience in multiple studios, what are some of the interesting experience that you have shared? Yeah, that you can share. I know that there is some weird clientele that you have to deal with, but please, maybe something that you are comfortable sharing with the audience.
Yeah, sure. I think because I've been in different studios of different sizes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they kind of draw a certain set of clientels. Like while I was in session, we deal directly with clients and homeowners. So um, undeniably, the process or the experience dealing with the clients then is very, very different. People tend to get really, really personal when it is their own personal house, I'd say. Um, but I think if I were to highlight like interesting experience, I think it was a housing that I did years ago. And it was really funny because everything went well until they call us up. I actually went all the way there, took a flight, and they complained. They said, "Okay, we couldn't sell the unit because you actually made walk-in wardrobe. People don't want walk-in wardrobe." So that kind of like um, that was a really really weird experience to me because I thought everyone needed a walk-in wardrobe space, and that actually was the pivot moment for me. Like I moved away from doing housing, so for developments, and I actually went with a smaller studio. That was a pivoting point. So I would say, in terms of experience wise, that was a shocker. That was interesting. And yeah, and the transition. But I would say across all the scales of office kind of all the things that I've gone through, I think one thing remains. It doesn't matter what you're qualified as, like part one, part two. Sometimes you get bogged down by that. Um, from all those offices, I've seen people from a part one background or even the basic part two can actually come up with really, really fantastic designs or even outcome. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and that actually relates back to my previous point, previous question about how I view architecture, not just architecture as a whole, but the individuals that worked on it. So
Yeah, I think the work is uh have a very close relationship, how you get to know yourself, how you imagine yourself to be. It really relates to your self-worth and how you define what good architecture is. Meaning sometimes the work can be very personal, and even though it's a professional, like any lawyers or accountants,
yeah,
architects are professionals, but sometimes some works are really personal to us because the value of what is good architecture or what is I don't know how to frame it, to be honest. But sometimes at the same time rejection are also uh fairly common. Like we got it in daily basis, either
yeah,
creatively, legally from the PBTs and whatnot. So
yes.
definitely this journey has been taken. I mean, I'm not generalizing, but I would say almost everyone has to a threshold where it affect their well-being. So in your case, do you have like a coping mechanism or recovery mechanism to prevent the passion to
Uh,
be, burnt out?
I do actually. You see, in order for us to improve, or at least that's how I feel it should be, in order for us to improve, we need to be constantly creating.
Mhm.
But if you're just stuck on just doing architecture, you will end up burning out, actually, to be honest. I think I felt that before. Like, I think your question was how do we keep our sanity in check, right? And then how do we bounce back? And I think one of the exercises that I did that was really beneficial was actually doing something non-architecture, but still designing. Because it's still the same principle in how you design. You have a certain preference of things, certain preference for materials, but we can actually get out of the mindset of I have to deal with the client. You get what I mean? So during those downtimes is when I would actually do something completely different, something that's in my mind that I can just put without any bad criticism, I would say,
Yeah.
for lack of better word. Yeah. So that helped in
So
keeping the fire.
yeah, I know that you are continuously expanding yourself. Definitely, you have a SoundCloud account as well. Go check them
Eh,
out.
ada eh?
I think
Okay.
ada sebab I search on it ada. Tapi it's
It's been years, right?
with a hairdo, I think, if not mistaken. And then
Right.
uh and then now since the emergence of NFT art, obviously you have ventured into that as well. Under I think the brand name is Syarawi, right? If not
Yes.
mistaken. Yeah. So how do you see yourself shifting towards NFT after practicing for quite some time, and then I think this year, right, you started.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
I
how
think
does the shift happen, if you don't mind sharing? Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a complete shift. When I said that how do we keep the fire alive, right? Is to create something that is out of architecture. I think that thing I've been doing for quite some time. It's just that now there's a new outlet to it. There's like, hey, I've been doing this for whatever reason. It's always in my hard drive. Why not? expand and actually push it out. And mana tahu, people actually like it. You know? So I like that the fact that the whole thing or the technology, I would call it, it's kind of like a level playing field. It's something really completely out of architecture, but everyone gets a fresh start. So I like that. It's challenging, but you know, the end is limitless.
So as we scroll through your pentas account just now, we saw a lot of minted NFT work. Just out of curiosity, how many artwork have you minted? Because I mean, across all platforms.
I think probably about 500 or 600. I can't remember, but it's like along that line. Because I do know that macam my mass is at 130.
Mm-hmm.
My coffee machine is already 100. So few hundreds at least.
Is there a team that researching, for example, the mass series, right? I know that they are, what do you call it, curatorial write-up for each one of them. So do you mind like sharing some of the process behind it?
There is a process. Like mass is actually a very personal thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at all the others, like coffee machines and stuff, those are pretty random. They were just things that I was talking to my friend one day on Discord, and we were talking about cool coffee machines.
Right.
And then that night I decided, you know what, let me like make one. So I started one and I couldn't stop. So it became like a series. The eggs, at one point I did the eggs, and that was because someone asked for reban ayam. Someone asked for ayam laga. Then that was the story lah, you know. Like, I buat reban ayam and then I buat the egg kan, as the reban ayam. So mask pula, it was, you know, where you used to sketch up, right? And sketch up, Revit, and whatsoever. It's always very geometrical. So I want to push the boundaries in a way. It's a personal development journey, more than the actual need to actually churn out the mask. Kalau you tengok, you follow from the beginning, it's actually me not knowing how to sculpt at all. Every single minted ones is actually a process tau. Kalau tengok the next one, then maybe you notice that, okay, I changed my stroke a bit because I get comfortable with certain new techniques that I picked up. So yeah, that as a whole, yes, is a journey, but I also mint across different platforms because each mass series on each platform has its own macam story, lore. Kalau the ones on foundation, they are more mythological. They are gods and goddesses like Greeks, Greek gods, Egyptian. So I like to do those kind of things. That is like a tie-in between my personal development and also what I like most. Kalau you pernah tengok cerita by Tarsem Singh, Immortals, where they were fighting the titans, you know. So I rasa macam that movie is really artsy and beautiful. And daripada situ I rasa macam, you know what, I want to make my own.
I saw some shift in terms of trying to bridge the Syarawi ecosystem lah, I would call it. I don't know what you would say. You know, I think what you were trying to do is try to give real life perks out of owning the NFTs and partially overlapping the NFT project with the ACP. So yeah. How do you see those trends? Do you think that this will become a norm where services can be a little bit more creatively packaged, I would say? Or I'm not so sure if that's your intention. But
that is right. That is one of the reasons. But as of now, the integration isn't there completely. There's only one guy, one collector that actually met my requirement for actually redeeming works like that. But so this project, there was one collector from US that actually got this. But macam nak cakap lah, we haven't reached complete integration yet between ACP and that. It nampak macam is actually the synergy, but actually it's not yet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people will pivot towards this soon, right? I think more architects is gonna jump into this space. I've seen a lot overseas, because, like I said just now, it's a level playing field. Everyone can join in. It's a new pool of clients. Whether you talk about just purely NFTs, or you relating it to crypto investors. So these are also pool of clients for you, as an architect. So why not? It's sort of like a win-win. So renew your passion, get new clients.
Yeah. So,
So that's how I feel.
Certainly there is like a worthy exploration, definitely. And I think because of that, you mentioned there is one US client, right? So again, not having this additional funnel, you wouldn't get in touch to those international uh clientele. But you
That
have
is
done
true.
but you have done multiple collaboration before. I mean, I saw you in Twitter collaborating with almost everyone and then try to get their IPs like Rochepang and everyone else to be integrated into NFT artwork. But of course, you design product as well and architectural equipments. I would say I'm not so sure what category is that. Yeah, I think
Yeah, those are architecture
fittings,
hardwares lah.
hardware, yeah,
Yeah, the
fittings.
fittings.
And how do they get in touch with you, or like how this collaboration come prop about? Is it the same like under the pretext of social circle, social media, or is it a little bit more, like a trade show, or it's just a random email come into your inbox one day?
No, I think most of it is sort of like me self-inviting.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, you see, because I realized one thing. Let's say out of NFT lah kan,
Yeah.
dalam architecture itself, you realize that the newer startups, it's hard for you to go at it alone, right? Regardless whether you're a firm or you're a designer or you're a coder, it's hard for you to go at it alone these days. So it's better to actually pair up people, minimizes your resources, get new ideas in. So I think it's the right way forward. So I decided one day, like, you know what, people are not coming to me. I'm still new. I'm just going to wing it and ask, hey, you, let's collab. So it's as simple as that. It's very informal, but if they take the bait, I'm like, okay, on,
Yeah.
So, but before I invite them for collaboration, I would always have some sort of an idea what I want to do. Okay, I have this idea in my head. Now I'm just going to go to you and ask, do you want it or not?
Yeah.
If you want it, let's go, let's do this. So that's the kind of collaboration so far. And I will see whether it jives or not. Like whether their vision and mine works. So there are some collaborations that memang I didn't go through simply because, you just couldn't make it work. So that's that then. Like if you're talking about architectural and NFT collaboration, I think they are very different. There's a lot more skin in the game when it comes to architecture. So that one from the get-go, when we decide to collab, there's a lot of factors involved, like design inclinations, like monetary factor, the financial side of the business. So, but if you look on the NFT spectrum, I can just go to anyone overseas and just say, look, let's collab. And they can just split it right then 50-50 or 70-30. So it's a different world of collaborations. As for the young product design too, there's a bit of story. Dulu when I was studying SPM kan, I did not take biology because I kind of suck at science. But there was a subject called Reka Cipta. So I took Reka Cipta instead of biology. So I rasa macam benda tu macam intriguing tau, the process of designing a product. I would say I started there first sebelum masuk architecture. So that's why bila I work NFT, it's like always a product thing,
Yeah.
like coffee machine, water bottle,
Yeah.
because it's already in my head, kind of.
Itulah. Maybe a little bit of segue. Biology is sort of like a common first tier subject that they teach in all secondary Malaysian school or national school lah. Why do you think, for example, lukisan kejuruteraan or even mereka cipta is not a little bit more common? I think tak banyak. I mean, I'm not so
Banyak.
sure. I'm not so sure about the prospect of learning biology and then eventually transferring to what field. But I don't think every school needs to have a biology punya option. That makes people appreciate. I don't know. I hope lah. When it's a bit more mainstream, it will give people a bit more appreciation towards design, even though they might not be able to comprehend the whole journey. They might not become
Yeah.
an architect or engineer, but at least because of the exposure in the secondary school. What do you think about that?
I think it all boils down to Malaysians daripada dulu macam actually not so receptive towards arts and craft tau, culturally. Faham tak? There are some, kita ada cultural history, but at some point the education macam pivot towards you gotta be doctor, engineer. So there was a physics,
Right.
biology, it was always towards there. Then you ada semua ni yang sampingan. Zaman I lah, at least everyone perceive it as like, kenapa you nak ambil technical drawing,
Yeah.
Dia kata kenapa dekat cerita maybe tak ada opportunity for you in Malaysia and whatever back then, right?
Yeah.
Tapi sekarang things change, people start to see the rise in appreciating all this craftsmanship. I just call them craftsmanship lah, as an umbrella lah kan. Benda tu all related. So
Macam
I think
macam I pun personally, I opt out from the school and try to find school that offer LK, lukisan kejuruteraan. And I think at that time, there's only 2, insyaAllah. So that's how bad it is. I mean, 15 years ago lah.
Sekarang, I'm not too sure. I think they changed the system too many times. I can't keep track.
So talking about like doing things with your own hands, now we have the advent of AI generated images. I personally think they are, better than I thought it would be. And how about you? Do you feel the same?
I agree tau. Benda tu macam quite interesting. Tapi it boils down to this tau. Boils down to the person who has a good command of language.
Right.
Because for you to be able to get a good result, it's all about the AI being able to understand your request or your your vision, kan? Then you have to put your vision in words.
Yeah.
So if you can't put it in like a sentence with the proper punctuations, you can notice that the AI generated word will look terrible. Tapi kalau orang tu macam ditulis betul-betul, like be very descriptive, like okay, this in this art style, this one with what background, what color, what kind of mood, then benda tu churn out something interesting. And I think potential is good, right? And I think it will get better this coming few years, I'm sure, because benda tu constantly collecting data kan. The more people do, I'm assuming, the more people do, the more they understand, like even okay, what kind of artwork did people reject, what kind did they accept, maybe. Then they'll come up with something way better. And tapi kan at this point, I feel like it's a bit sayang kalau orang pakai that AI generated as is. Like you come out with it and as is. I think it's more brilliant or beautiful kalau there's a bit of human interaction with that art piece itself. For now.
Yeah. So this is the what I call it, the ability to talk to machine. I think is how to describe things to a AI engine really matters. Actually, bila orang cakap a picture worth 1,000 word, actually I lagi suka a word actually can generate 1,000 picture or more. Actually, now we sort of like understand the power of words. And with that in mind, there's a lot of exchanges in Facebook. Of course, Facebook is a social media platform, so everyone can say anything. And of
Yeah.
course, some are things that not 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 really controversial lah, but partially invite what do you call it, response when we talk about wages, how graduate architects or architecture fraternity as a whole is poorly paid, and even the discussion around Stadium Shah Alam is also, circulating around among architects. So the exchanges deemed to be sometimes, could be as prolonged as Kevin versus Seshan, or it could be as short as whatever we are having online. What do you think about these exchanges in an open platform? I think architects generally are very preserved. Most of us are popcorn eaters, just looking at the chat after the discussion has been
Yeah,
punished
that's
out.
true.
Is it is it good, bad, or the sometimes I found it is oversimplified lah. The issue has a lot of nuance, but it's oversimplified for the Facebook
Yes.
audience, and there's a lack of context in this conversation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's all about lack of context, actually. Since you brought up the question of that stadium, right?
Yeah.
If someone generally asks you, let's not look at it from an architect's point of view, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say someone asks you in the star ke apa ke. It's just an open question. Say, what do you think, right? Between an old stadium and then this new nice one, I'm assuming is by Hijaz, I think. Like, would you want this? But that is like, macam mana? It's too simplified.
Yeah.
There is no context. So there is no context. It leads to so much disputes because orang macam wondering like why. I am starting to wonder why masa awal-awal tu like why would you do that? Like I thought the building is okay. But when people bring in context, like, okay, it can't fit a certain capacity, you need to increase the capacity. You're talking about dated infrastructure. You're talking about dilapidated building, So maybe it makes more sense economically to actually rebuild or refurbish it. But that is the importance of the context.
Yeah.
So I do feel like the online discussions are nice. Occasionally I do eat popcorn and just watch. Yeah. But sometimes I partake. Yeah. I was engaged when it comes to the stadium thing.
Right.
But I pivoted after I seen someone, I think was who was it? He wrote about a long paragraph explaining it. And I'm like, yeah, then why can't people actually explain that to the public?
Yeah.
Why can't you be very objective and explain how things are and why they need to be this way? I think it's still good.
Yeah. At least people are talking about architecture, kan? At least they show that they care. Because this particular building is actually, I stayed like very near the stadium. I can see the stadium from my house.
Right.
And has a lot of history in terms of like obviously designed by Hijaz. The first building in Malaysia that designed by AutoCAD, which is I think release 13, the version, the largest single span roof. Because I bought Hijaz punya glass, steel and concrete punya buku tau masa I was like secondary school. That's why macam building tu quite significant lah in that particular context kan, section 13 Shah Alam and whatnot. It's just that maybe what do you call it, slightly disappointed with how simple the new master plan is. I mean, design the stadium okay lah, but it's like a Mercedes logo, right? It's like a triangle, triarch ke apa benda tu. And then not so sure what's going on the side. So itu je lah as a local that stays there kan. So last but not least, actually, I'm trying to get to a point where collecting some voices from younger practitioners, what do they think about practice as a whole, and what do you think do you think the model of how ACP works should shift or should evolve or should be something else, or could it work on the momentum that we are on and just doing a slight improvement, or it's either improve or total shift? What do you think about that? Or at least in your case lah, Syarawi Architects, what do you think? Do you think you can go on like this as per traditional practice, or a change is due?
Change might be due. I wouldn't say change. I would say improvements are always welcome, to any practice that are governed by, like in this case, by LAM. But I start to see things as I think to see at the firm from a bigger picture, like maybe architecture is just one arm of it.
Right.
Like I aim to actually, let's be a design powerhouse. Anything design related,
right.
Big umbrella. Architecture practice is one of them, because I noticed that if you are just truly brought down on that, you'll forever be stuck in a loop of a consultant, regardless of how good the regulations will be for you. Let's say they improve your ACP punya experience, kan?
Right.
They set up something better for you. But the market or the world will decide to push back. There will always be pushback. So maybe you'll improve, maybe you won't. So I think that moving forward, I'm just going to make the ACP into like, okay, this is just an arm of it. It's part of the passion. But it shouldn't be like all in.
Yeah.
And macam like going back to your question, you said macam should we go there? Those changes, I think the changes comes from yourself. I think improvements can come from the regulatory body, but changes, I think even now, like you, Cityverse, kan, I think Qhawa, you guys are actually moving towards that, the metaverse and everything. I think that's a brilliant way forward, right? It's probably the shift that you need to actually diversify, creating new market for not just for yourself, for everyone.
Yeah, it's sort of like how EAMS, the EAMS kind of like doing films, doing advertisement, architecture, of course, furnitures, and Hedwig as well, I would say, to a certain extent. The design umbrella is widened. And of course, at the end of the day, it's all about, fueling that creative passion that we have. Okay, thank you so much for the sharing. I think we appreciate your input, especially during this week, this long break or long weekend. All of you can follow Architect Azlan Syarawi. I think your IG is quite personal, right? So that's not meant for work. But you have another
this
IG.
One, Syarawi Architect, yeah.
Syarawi Architect is on IG as well, on Facebook, I saw. And of course, Syarawi, as if like the NFT project, is on Pentas, OpenSea, and Foundation. Is there any other platform?
There is Form Function.
Form Function. Okay, so there's 4 platforms there. And always don't forget to subscribe to QWA YouTube channel and listen this podcast on Spotify. Thank you so much. Until the next one.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed the session, be sure to subscribe to QWA YouTube channel so you will be notified if a new episode is posted. Thank you for listening. Until next time.